Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for May 8th. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Puya. How you doing, Puya?
I'm good, man. I feel like there's been murmurs. Puya doesn't like Derek. Why is he doing this? Is he being punished? I'll say I'm nothing if not a professional, or if Mike Bloom was to put it, a professional in this instance. So I'm ready to break it down, man. Let's talk about Derek, aka Canadian Beans.
Yes, this is a very special live feed update. Obviously, there are no live feeds to update, but we are going to update you on the live feeds of the entire season. We're going to talk about each member of the final three in the next 3 days, and we're going to start it off today with Derek. Derek Kessler, I believe, is his name, and we're gonna go through Derek's game during the course of Big Brother Canada 6 from day one to the final three, and we're gonna examine it. We're gonna analyze it, and we're gonna talk about it. Most importantly, so very excited to be talking about Derek here. This is I like doing this. This is very fun. We've gone back. I realized I literally have detailed notes about every single day of the live feeds. So I have a few pages of detailed notes about Derek's entire game. This is not going to be based off of like memory or revisionist history. This is based straight out of the notes that I wrote every single day about the live feed. So very excited to be talking about Derek here, Priya.
Yeah, I'm very excited too, man. I couldn't have asked, there's no one better than you to go through these with, because you've got everything down to the detail. So if there's anybody in the entire planet that knows about Derek Kessler as a person and as a player, it's you. No one else. So
yes, I know more about him than he does.
Exactly.
And one thing that I was thinking of, everyone's talking about all the records that Kayla is breaking. But if Derek ended up as the Big Brother Canada 6 winner, he would be the very first North American winner to have the same name as another winner.
Oh, different spelling, but
different
still
spelling. Yes.
Yeah. We've never had a double. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe that's another thing for all the BB16 Derek fans to jump on this bandwagon now.
I don't know. Maybe that's a reason to jump off. You don't want him stealing away the Derek credit.
Yeah, you don't want it to be like, that Big Brother winner Derek is like, which one? Do you want that? Yeah,
exactly.
That can happen. Just one thing, Taran, for those of you who have been switched off of Big Brother stuff or did not watch the recap with Rob, Taran, and Brent last night, there's a note. We officially know now that the final three is Derek, Paris, and Kayla, because Arissa low-key spoiled everything on her, I think it was a Facebook Live with ET Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So now we know officially that Taran predicted correctly by, crossing off Will from these final days of recaps and giving himself a day off actually paid off. So it works out pretty well.
I will say, I had another dream last night.
Oh,
I'll reveal the results of the dream at the end of the podcast because it might be spoilers.
Oh my god.
But yeah, it was funny. Arissa spoiling the final three there, because like if she hadn't stopped herself and said no spoilers, I don't think people
would have assumed anything.
Yeah, like the showmance and another person, and then I guess she's not used to having to talk about not spoilers, or I don't know, but she was just like, what we would usually do is just be like, oh yeah, and then the other person will as well, but she was like, oh no spoilers, like wait, spoilers, oh okay, so the showmance is still there.
Yeah.
It's good. I mean, everybody that's watching that knew that Will had gone home. All right, so let's get started on Derek's game here. We start off week one. We know very little about what happened in week one. Unfortunately, the feeds were down for the entirety of the week, but we know that he was chosen by Andrew to be in heaven. He is the final person from heaven remaining in the game. And so he was safe for the entire week. He didn't have much to do, but he does manage to make a lot of social connections, right? So he starts this showmance with Kayla. He starts a bromance with Jesse. He is involved in this Real Deal alliance where Kayla, Jesse, and then Paris is brought in. Paris through Jesse. He's got a bro alliance with Jesse and Will. And then he is on, through Will, he's also very close to Maddie. And he's also on very good terms with Johnny, Erica, Allie, and Ryan. So that's most of the house.
Pretty much.
Yes, this is one of the reasons why Derek and Kayla are going to be seen as a threat for so long in the game. One is because of the fact that they're showmans. Two is the fact that they were in good with everyone and they were well liked for so long. Ultimately, well, obviously, Johnny is HOH. He ends up winning the veto as well. And he nominates Rosina and Allie. He does not use the veto, and Rosina is voted out of the house. So that was about week one. Anything you wanted to add for that week, Puya?
No, I mean, I guess we can kind of go back a little further and talk about his preseason video where he essentially said, you know, he's going to be a social player. He said that the type of person he is at his workplace, people come to him and complain about other people to him, and he kind of agrees with both sides, and that's kind of how he wants to play the game. And I think this is pretty evident from early goings, from the week one situation, because he was safe. He could have easily just laid back and did nothing, and I'm not saying that he put all this work in for the game, but this could be his natural charisma playing in, because he had all these connections, he was safe, and it was week one. And pretty much every connection he had, for the most part, was set up for end game material, looking back now, revising now, because him and Kayla strike week one, they're here final three together. Paris and Jesse were his next two biggest people, and outside of the Jesse eviction, that alliance is now at the end here. So Derek definitely used his social play early on, and he definitely, you know, got those ties together despite being safe and not really needing to move or needing to maneuver. Pretty good.
Yes, so they are set up pretty well here. Obviously, very insulated from a lot of different angles. Being in good with people like Johnny and Erica will end up, or could have ended up, paying off. And he's got the Real Deal. He's also got, you know, the Bro Alliance. Things are looking very up for Derek here during week one. Week two comes around. Rosina has been voted out. Derek votes Rosina out of the house, and the gate crashers enter into the game. Ryan then wins the HOH and immediately wants to question everybody. But because of the structure that Derek helped form, this structure, the social structure in the house, Ryan doesn't feel comfortable doing anything but nominating his own allies, Hamza and Andrew. Those are the people that he knows he's going to be putting up. He wants to do something different, but he needs to at least show the power favor, and the power at this point is Derek and Kayla. More so Derek than Kayla at the moment. People see sort of Derek as the more social player. That's going to change after Hamza's HOH week, but for now, Derek is sort of in charge of things with his bro side alliance and everything else. So Ryan is going to want to talk to people individually, and when he talks to Derek, Derek is going to play up this guy thing, this bro thing, like, the guys, we need to stick together. This is going to be a very recurring theme in Derek's game. He is always going to be talking about, let's have the guys work together, and it's going to be pretty successful for him with the other guys. Obviously, he doesn't talk about it with the girls, and it never really backfires on him either, which is surprising given how many strong women there were in the house. Like, they never really caught a whiff of this and went after him because of it.
Yeah, and I think it has to do with the fact that, you know, he can take guys all he wants, but they're still perceiving him as with Kayla, and it's like, no matter what he says, no matter what he does, Kayla's his one, Kayla's his person, and that was a good shield for him in that instance, because typically when murmurs come around of a gender-based alliance in the early goings of the game like that, you want to target the head of that. And Derek being the loudest voice and advocate for that could have been trouble for him. but he had other things going on that allowed him to not be seen as that figurehead. So it kind of worked out for him that way.
Yes. So Derek is also going to say some things to Ryan. He's going to tell Ryan that Maddie would be a good backdoor target. Ryan is asking for a backdoor target. At this point in the game, there is the 4-week plan: the Gate Crashers, Hamza, and Andrew. And so Ryan is trying to figure out who would we target after 4 weeks. And Derek throws Maddie's name out there because she's a floater and she would be easy to take out. He's also worried at this point about Erica. He says that Erica is a dangerous player in this game. You need to watch out for her. And he says, look, Ryan, Kayla and I were showmans. It's, you know, we feel for each other. This is the best Derek will ever talk about Kayla in the game in regards to their showmans. He's going to talk about having feelings for her and stuff like that. He's not going to talk about this much after this point in the game. But when he talks to Ryan about it, Ryan feels good about it. Ryan feels like Derek has confided in him, and he's touched by the romanticism in Derek. And Derek says, "Look, we're big targets. We're showmans. We're big targets. We'll always be targets in front of you." Ryan loves hearing that. He's going to repeat that later throughout the week. And it's going to be one of the main reasons why Ryan is not going to be, he's not going to be targeting the showmans anyway. He's too scared. But he's also definitely thinking that he wants to potentially work with them at this point in the game. And it largely comes down to this conversation with Derek. And at this point, Derek is feeling like he can maybe work with Ryan. He tells the other bros that maybe we should bring Ryan into our bro alliance. It's all very broy.
Very broy. And I think this has a lot to do with the fact that Ryan that week was putting up, well, as you said, Hamza and Andrew. These are just two people. He's trying to appease the house. He's trying to gain social capital in some which way, because he believes that if he doesn't do this, he's the one going next. And I think Derek approaching him and being so open and so vulnerable with this information, telling him that, you know, he's in a showmance with Kayla, has feelings for Kayla. Really, Ryan feels really good about this, right? Ryan feels like a confidant. He feels like he trusted me with this information. He put this in my hands. Similarly to how when Johnny, weeks later, you know, reveals to Ryan, I'm a big fan and everything. Ryan loves when he gets the intimate details and secrets, because he likes to think that they trust me. They like me. They really like me. So this was a perfect play for Derek, because it allows Ryan to feel like he belongs. And it also makes Derek feel good in the sense that, okay, maybe this is one more number that I'm good with and I can potentially work with moving forward. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, for sure. And this is going to be a tactic that Derek uses throughout most of the first half of the game. It's going to be very effective. And largely, again, one of the reasons why Dela is not targeted in the first half of the game is I think based on what happens here, largely because of Derek's social connections, and they even talk about that. Yes, they talk about that this week. Derek and Kayla have a conversation about their strategy in the game, and they say, like, Derek, your connections are saving us right now. Like, your social ability is one half of our strategy, and then Kayla says, I know the game and I'm going to lead us strategically. And we're going to work together and we're going to kill this game. And that is essentially how they operate. Derek doesn't do much of the strategizing. Kayla doesn't do much of the socializing. And that's also something that we'll have to talk about when it comes down to a potential final two. But obviously, the one part that they're leaving out is the essential third leg of that tripod is them both winning comps back to back.
Yeah.
So that was also very important. So at this point, Ryan, he wants to work with them. They feel like he feels like they're good shields for him. Also, Erica and Liv are wanting to form an alliance with. This was just a fun thing to remember. An alliance of Erica, Liv, and Johnny at the center of it. Dayla on the next level, and then Paris and Will on the outer level. Imagine if that alliance had come together.
That would have been insanity. It would have been a whole different end game at that point. It would have been very interesting for sure. But honestly, it was amazing because typically when we see a showmance like this, especially in the early goings, think back to like BB12 with Hayden and Kristen, like when they are founded, when they are outed, they are targeted because it's an easy 2 people to put in front of you and get rid of. But the fascination with these 2 specifically was they were pretty much announced by the end of week 1. They were on the table and everyone kind of knew about it, but also everyone was trying to weaponize them, as Spencer would say in BB15, of like, these are 2 people that will always be ahead of us on the target list. If we keep them, they're always ahead of us and we're safe. We're fine. So by it's like a 50-50 with most houses. You don't know which way it's going to sway. It swayed in the right direction for them, and they were able to honestly capitalize on it and make it through the first half of the game with no problems and no targets until about like week 5, 6.
Yeah, so. and basically any discussion about potentially making an alliance in the house, because people are still forming potential alliances at this point. Almost every single one of them included Dayla in it, and that was mostly due to Derek's social game. A lot of people talked about how they felt comfortable with Derek. They liked Derek a lot. There wasn't as much talk in that regard about Kayla at this point. It was mostly about Derek and how he was a nice guy and they feel good about him. And so they want to include Derek and Kayla in their alliances. And don't worry if you're a Kayla fan. We'll get to Kayla's half of this. This is all about Derek, this podcast. And of course, I forgot to mention, feel free to join us on RHAP-ups.com. We have the chat room open. If you have questions about the week that we're talking about, feel free to ask them and we will answer as we go. So if you want to get involved in the discussion, feel free. So then we find out that Ryan has now leaked some of the information that Derek said. He told Maddie that Derek said Maddie's name. He told Erica that people were saying her name, and it gets back to Derek, and Derek is like, okay, no. We're done with Ryan. And this is going to be the start of a very contentious relationship between Ryan and Dayla. Who knows what could have happened if Ryan had just kept his mouth shut here. But Derek says, no, we're done. He is not joining the bros. We're not into it. And that's it. He talks to Jesse about, okay, the alliance we want to make is us, Kayla, Paris, Will, Liv, and Johnny. That's who we want to work with. So ultimately, I mean, that obviously also doesn't necessarily come through all the way. Hamza and Andrew are nominated by Ryan. And then we see, obviously, everything that happens with Ryan, I've watched 800 hours, you need to throw the veto, it's best for your game, and everything that happens there with Ryan, which just further annoys Derek and Jesse, and I think everyone else as well, Puya.
Yeah, no, I think that's the start of the beginning of the end for Ryan. I feel like that is where a lot of us got tired and realized, okay, Ryan's just going to keep bemoaning and talking and trying to like give advice and act like he is the encyclopedia that is Big Brother. He's no Taran Armstrong, that's for damn sure. And his whole plan got foiled because this was the introduction of the Tomb Raider veto, which they sprinkled in a little bit of $5,000, which made sure that nobody was going to throw this veto. And it just bothered people, the idea that Ryan thinks he's in so much control, because Ryan kind of set that up for himself by, kowtowing to the nominations, then trying to backtrack, and then, Derek knowing that his secrets have been revealed. It just, none of it sat well with them at all. And I think that's where any chance Ryan had at solidifying something with the bros kind of fell dead. instantly.
Yes. So ultimately, we see Erica win this veto, and this is another point where the feeds were down for a while. So it's unfortunately a very important point in the season. While the feeds are down, an alliance of 7 is formed, and I don't know how this alliance started because it wasn't the alliances that had been talked about. But ultimately, this alliance of 7 is formed. It's Derek, Kayla, Jesse, Erica, Johnny, Allie, and Olivia. So basically, how Allie got involved, her name had never been brought up. I have to imagine Olivia somehow brought her in. Maybe Johnny did at that point, actually, because I know Johnny was close to Allie. So Allie gets involved in this alliance, but this is the new alliance, and Paris and Will notably absent in this alliance, and that's going to be important. Obviously, this also has to do with the rooms, the red room, the white room, and that's going to start to worry people as well. It's at this point that again something happens while the feeds are down. The fact that this alliance is formed, the rooms, I feel like they're probably socializing a lot more with these people and not with the other people. Now people are starting to catch on. Okay, Dela is the center of power in this house, and I don't think they're with me. So Hamza's starting to see that. He's starting to see that Dela is a big threat. He wants to start targeting them. He wants to make big moves. Granted, he was always sort of seeing that, but he's focusing in on the showmans at this point. Will and Maddie are also starting to worry. They had been close with Dela. Obviously, Will is still in the Bro Alliance, but I think that Will is starting to get antsy about making a big move as well, and he's starting to feel like, am I in the center of this? Or is Dela in the center of this? Because it feels like it's just all about Dela. So Will and Maddie, they talk to Paris about it. And Paris tries to cover for Dela. She tries to smooth things over. She's in the real deal. She wants everything to be cool with Dela. But she, of course, can't let this go without taking credit for covering for Dela. So she goes to Dela and she tells them, not that Paris and Maddie are feeling, not that Will and Maddie are feeling a little anxious about Dela, but that Allie and Liv are feeling anxious about Dela. And we know this. We'll talk more about this when we get to Paris's day. But this is because of the jealousy thing between Liv and Jesse. Paris thinking that Liv is trying to come on to Jesse, but Paris is with Jesse, so she wants to put the target on Olivia. So she's going to go to Dela and say, Allie and Liv are talking bad about you guys. They're saying that you guys are threatening and that they're worried about you, and I'm trying to cover for you guys. And at this point in the game, Kayla and Derek believe Paris. They believe her 100%. They're like, thank you, Paris, for coming to us with this information. We are now targeting Allie and Olivia. So their target shifts from Ryan, who was previously their target because of everything going on, to Allie and Olivia heading into the new HOH. And there's one more important thing that happens before the HOH competition is that Johnny finds out that this shift is happening, that Dela is now no longer trusting Allie and Liv. Allie and Liv are also kind of hearing something weird is happening. Johnny, I believe, I don't remember who tells him, but somebody's like, oh yeah, Allie and Liv are coming after Dela. And he's like, wait, what? No, they're not. And so he goes and he gives Allie and Olivia a heads up. And so now they actually are anti-Dela. So Paris essentially turns this into reality, and we're looking at a potential Allie and Liv versus Dela sort of fight. A lot of people are targeting Allie and Liv heading into this HOH. We ultimately see Andrew evicted unanimously. Derek, obviously, one of those votes to send Andrew home. And that is week 2. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very, very heavy week. We got a lot of information. And typically that's what happens with week 2 because we don't get anything in week 1. So by week 2, our brains are scrambling. The feeds are exploding. We're just getting in as much information. And that was a lot, especially with this season in particular. There was a lot going on. I mean, you've mentioned all these alliances that happened, the fallout there, the feeds went off and a new alliance was born. And then we're seeing this house, like a room feud starting to happen, but we're not 100% sure. So then moving into week 3, things were starting to get really interesting and also worrisome for the showmans because they were starting to come up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, basically, Derek further solidifies the connections that he has in the house through multiple different alliances. He locks things down, but he also starts to rise more on the threatening meter, the threat meter, and because of that. Before it can even really start his and Kayla's dominance over the house, it starts to crumble from within, and he starts to target his own alliance. His own alliance starts to target him. At this point in the game, he still has a massive advantage over Ali and Liv. Almost everyone in the house, except for Ali, Liv, or Hamza, would target Olivia in this coming week, and Dela would be safe. But that is not how Big Brother Canada 6 wanted to operate. And one of the very few people that could win HOH to put Dela in trouble ends up winning the HOH. Heading into week 3, Hamza has won the HOH, and immediately Dela is his target. Dela knows that they're in trouble. They talk about it before we even got Hamza's plan. We had Dela on the feeds discussing with each other, okay, we're in trouble. Hopefully, and Kayla says this in particular. Kayla's like, well, hopefully he'll still target Liv, right? But Derek is like, I don't know. I think it's a good idea. I think that I should try and bond with Hamza. He legitimately comes up with a premeditated plan. I need to bond with Hamza like a bro. We need to bring him in. I approach him with the guys thing. We need to do anything we can to keep ourselves off the block this week. And that is going to prove to be very effective, Puya.
Yeah, I feel like Derek's bro strategy, while eye rolls can be included, was effective with a couple of these guys in this house that vibe that way, that feel more comfortable that way. And Hamza was definitely one of these guys. He immediately, this bond worked out for the better for him. And while it didn't completely keep all of Derek's allies safe, it kept him and Kayla safe, which was absolutely astounding. Because as you mentioned, there was a small fraction of people that were going to do the targeting of the showmans, and Hamza, for the 2 weeks we saw him, or for the 1 week we saw him on the feeds, was talking about, this isn't Kumbaya, they're acting like it's summer camp, I need to get rid of this is not a love fest, this is like the showmans needs to go. And that was his thing the entire time. So to get power and then to not do it, you gotta imagine they had something to do with it, and you best believe they had something to do with it. Derek's bro strategy worked here.
Yes, yeah. Hamza's initial plan was to nominate Kayla and Olivia, and then potentially backdoor Derek. If that doesn't go through, then he would just take out Kayla. But after Derek intentionally goes and tries to bond with Hamza, he gets himself taken to Wendy's. And during their Wendy's get together, some magic happens, and Hamza comes out of that Wendy's meal feeling very good about Derek, and he tells people, I no longer want to target Derek. I'm not willing to put him up on the block. Instead, he's going to target Jesse or potentially Kayla still. Just not Derek. Definitely not Derek. Much more likely to do Jesse. So that is a situation where one of the showmans is gone for sure. Derek ends up having some I'm going to be talking a lot about must win competitions. This was a must win social win over, saved by the social game. Paris ends up telling Dela that Ryan was the one pushing for them to be targeted, pinning all the blame on Ryan, because Ryan was the one that came to the White Room to say that Hamza's plan was to target Dela. If you remember us talking about this was just bad luck for Ryan. Because he was the one to come in and say it. And I don't want to say completely bad luck, because the way that he says things, it's condescending, and it makes you feel like, Ryan must be telling Hamza to do this. So anyway, this puts the target back onto Ryan for Dela. They had kind of gone, okay, Ali and Liv are more of our targets, even though we kind of hate Ryan. Paris is going to get the target back onto Ryan. This Ryan Dela feud is going to continue to build momentum here. Largely because, again, Paris is directing Dela for a large part of the early season, but there's going to be a moment where that stops, and we'll talk about that when it comes.
Yeah.
But yes, ultimately, Hamza nominates Jesse and Olivia.
Yeah. As Steph mentions in the chat, both Derek and Kayla were have-nots, and Hamza was like, I feel bad about this. I don't really want to like do more to them. And Ryan, honestly, like if you wanted to give him a nickname for the season, he would have been the blame bank. Anytime you wanted to blame somebody, you blamed Ryan. And specifically with Dela, we saw multiple counts of this during the season where that happened. And typically Paris was the one at the forefront. Just put the blame on Ryan, and then just they forget everything else that they've known and they focus on Ryan. And that kind of was Paris moving back from what she had did the week before with the Olivia and Ali targeting, and now it's back to Ryan. And somehow, some way, man, bonding with your bro over burgers worked out for the better for this alliance, and it's all thanks to Derek. I think Derek's social game, honestly, as we mentioned at the top of this, was the reason why they were safe in the first half. And this is one of the main major instances where had he not convinced Hamza, had he not charmed the pants off of Hummus Boy, it would have gone bad. And it went well. So kudos to Derek.
It went well. Hamza tells Derek that he wants to work with him after putting Jesse on the block. The only reason Jesse is on the block is because he wants to stack the veto, is the excuse. Derek believes him when he tells him this. And weirdly, also, Hamza may have been telling the truth because... I still don't know exactly what Hamza was doing up until the door slam, but theoretically, Hamza actually didn't plan on taking Jesse out. At this point, he may have planned on taking Ryan out. So, hard to know exactly what's going on there with Hamza. But the point is that he wanted to work with Derek. Unfortunately, though, and this is a huge turning point in the game. Because this is going to, we've talked about the reason why Dela and Ryan happened. This is the start of Dela versus Johnny. It's revealed to Johnny that when Hamza approached Jesse and Derek about putting Jesse on the block, Jesse said Johnny's name. He said, you're putting me up to stack the veto. Why not put up somebody else like Johnny? And Derek was there. Johnny heard about this. Johnny is supposed to be in an alliance with Derek and Jesse, and Johnny is like, you said my name. Oh, no. You are done, sir. Jesse, you are going home. And Dela, I cannot believe that you did not stick up for me, Derek. You are dead to me now. I am removing myself from this alliance, and I am going to throw a grenade into it in the meantime. This is going to prove very problematic for Dela moving forward in the game.
Yeah, and I feel like up until this point, we had seen Johnny win those two competitions in the first week, and we were all worried, like, damn, you don't want to do that this early on. But he did a good job of being quiet, and he went back to sleep. He was fine. And then Jesse murmurs his name. And if we've learned one thing about Johnny now is that you don't target Johnny and get away with it. You don't bring him up and be okay. And this is kind of where Johnny wakes up and now is on to the Dela shenanigans. And he's on to Derek, and like Johnny had his finger on the pulse pretty much the entire time during the game. So he knew exactly what was going on at this instance. And he knew that Jesse is Derek's right-hand man, and he can no longer be here because he said my name.
Yeah. So Hamza wins the veto, and as I mentioned, his plan is to save Jesse and backdoor Ryan. But Johnny doesn't want to hear that. Johnny and Will as his side piece. Will also, again, I don't know exactly what turned Will against Derek and Jesse, apart from just wanting to make big moves, not feeling included enough. Maybe Will felt like the third wheel when Jesse and Derek were making googly eyes at each other. But something, and part of it I'm sure was Johnny as well. Something turned Will against them. So Johnny is going to do a lot of work to make sure that Hamza turns on Jesse, that he will get the votes against Jesse. There's also a door slam that has nothing to do with Derek's game, but there was a door slam, and that certainly did a lot. Ultimately, Hamza does say, okay, I want Jesse out of this house. Johnny's going to, again, put in a lot of work to make sure that that actually happens. Johnny's going to try and turn Hamza against the showmance. He says, look, Derek can make you feel good, but Derek is not really with you. And Hamza is going to hear that, but he's still not really going to feel it. Not yet, at least. Derek tries to warn Jesse about the door slam situation. He tries to get Hamza to apologize, or tries to get Jesse to apologize to Hamza. It's not working. Nothing is working. Meanwhile, Marin, who is one of these people that's like, the showmance is at the center of all the power in the house. We need to target the showmance. Why are we even targeting Jesse? Marin tries to get Hamza to use the veto and backdoor Derek. Hamza is still, after everything, unwilling to put Derek on the block. He still likes Derek, does not want to target Derek. He would rather see Jesse leave. So Derek's social game continuing to keep him safe with Hamza, even after Hamza is fully on board to target Derek's right-hand man.
Yeah, and I feel like the door slam played a big part. This was the instance where we knew for sure Hamza is the player that we saw in his preseason video. Complete wild card, just wants to make waves, just wants to cause chaos, and that was enough of a reason for him. The lucky part here is that whatever Derek said to him during the Wendy's meal, the bond they had there was strong enough that he was unwavering to Derek. He did consider at one point removing Olivia and just putting up Derek to solidify Jesse going, because he saw that to be a plausible plan. But ultimately, that didn't come into fruition because he still didn't want to mess with Derek. It was funny because the week prior, they had that big bonding moment being have-nots, him, Jesse, Derek, and they, wrapped everything in foil, and they had fun with that. That was a good time. And it just so happened to be that Jesse slammed a door, and that was that. That was the end of it. He didn't want to hear anything else, and it was over. And as far as Will goes, man, Will wanted a big move. Will wanted to have some kind of equity in this game, go a little bit crazy. I recall him not really being too much of a fan of the Jesse Paris connection anyways. So when he hears whispers of let's make this happen, he was very down to just push through with it. And it's funny because I think that was the loudest we've seen Will be in a strategic sense, in a gameplay sense. After this, he's just loud because he's angry and he's pissy about little things that do not matter.
Yes. Hamza ultimately does not use the veto. And Derek and Kayla think that they have the votes to keep Jesse at this point because Veronica is promising them the world. But Kayla is going to quickly find out that is not the case. And what could be a disaster for Dela, even certainly. Derek has been doing well so far, and he did well to keep himself off the block. Losing Jesse is going to be a big blow to his power structure. So this is where his relationship with Kayla is finally going to start to pay off. Kayla is going to reunite Dela with Ali and Olivia. They're going to have a conversation where they talk about why were we ever against each other? We shouldn't be against each other. They end up blaming Maddie instead of Paris for spreading false information that has separated them, and that is going to help reunite Dela with some kind of power structure. Once Derek finally accepts that Jesse is going to go home, they approach Will and Veronica with this new plan to form an alliance called Fives Company, which includes Hamza. Hamza still wants to work with Derek, so Hamza's totally on board with this. They make this Fives Company alliance. This is when Will starts to show off. Just immediately, he's spineless again, where he's like, "Oh well, Jesse just pitched to us. Do you think I need to go tell Derek, right? I can't not tell Derek this." And Hamza's like, "Why? Why do you need to tell Derek?" And Will's like, "But we need to tell Derek. Derek, it affects Derek. Is Jesse pitching it?" he's going to target Derek. And but this is not about Will. So point is, Gala at the height of their or at the lowest point in their game, I should say, as Jesse is going out of the house because of some good work by Kayla. Manages to reintegrate themselves in the house, and then Derek and Kayla together, using Derek's connection with Will, are able to reform this another alliance. They form this Fives company, and that's how we end the week. Jesse is evicted.
Yep, Jesse is evicted. They agree to not target Ali and Olivia till jury. They have this like understanding between each other, and then they kind of rope in Erica too. So ultimately, week 4. Looking like it's bad for them, they turn it into a good thing. And then another thing they did, which I feel like is kind of underrated, is the fact that Derek, it's one of 2 instances where he does not vote with the majority of the house on the eviction. He votes to keep Jesse and by voting out Olivia, and then Kayla votes to get rid of him, get rid of Jesse. And this was good for a couple of reasons, obviously. First and foremost, they're showmans. They're understandably together. By doing this, they make it seem, at the very least subconsciously, they make it seem we're not always going to agree together. We're not just going to follow each other. If you aren't good with one, doesn't mean like that's 2 votes against you, because it's possible that we're going to have a difference in opinion. Now, obviously, this didn't come into play all that much. It didn't seem like all that much anyways, because Jesse was just Jesse was Derek's ride or die type of situation to everyone else. But I think it's a good subconscious thing to move forward with, because it doesn't look like you're completely set in stone.
Yeah. Tracy in the chat asked, was Kayla advising Derek to make these plays? She was giving Derek some advice. She was the one, I believe, that suggested that Derek tried to get Jesse to apologize to Hamza. And she tried to facilitate let's try and make sure that we're good with Hamza. But for the most part, there's no like overt direction going on from Kayla at this point. Kayla is kind of doing her own thing. She's not saying, Derek, you need to go talk to Ali and Liv to make sure we're good with them. She's going herself and talking to Ali and Liv, and she makes sure that she's good with them. Derek is also doing his own thing. And anything they do together is a mutual decision for the most part. And that's really going to be the case throughout most of the season. There's never really a time that that Kayla just outright orders Derek to do anything or advises him to do something. They are very much a this is not I can't even think of a pair that was definitely one-sided, but they come to mutual decisions together. They often operate together. I don't think there's any move that they made together that we can credit more to one person than the other. It's really the things that they did separately, like Derek bonding with Hamza. That was all Derek. Kayla reuniting with Ali and Liv. That was all Kayla. But then Fives Company was the 2 of them. So that's how I think we need to look at it. But yes, good to note that Derek votes for Olivia here. Knowing that Jesse is going home and Jesse is evicted, and we head into week 4 where Erica wins the HOH. Her target is Maddie, and Dela at this point is safe. We talked about how basically anyone except for Hamza could have won the previous HOH and Dela would have been safe. Luckily, because of the both of their work throughout the week last week, they managed to stay safe and maintain their power structure. Now that Erica is HOH, they never really had too much of a problem with their relationship with Erica. They are just flat out safe here. And they don't need to do much work at this point. This is a week where Derek is really going to finally sit back, and he's able to rest on the power that he has and just focus more on his social game. And that's anytime he has the opportunity to, anytime he doesn't have to be making strategic moves, he's probably not going to be doing it. He's going to instead focus on his social game. and his relationships with people, which again may come into play once if we're looking at the final two. But for now, not a whole lot that Derek is doing during week 4.
No, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they honestly went clutch the week before. The alliance they struck was key for the upcoming weeks because of the people winning the power. And this is where the distractions start happening. The other targets start emerging, and it was perfect for them, Derek specifically, because we just discussed for the last 40 minutes about how these first couple weeks, they're safe, they're not safe, it's oscillating. There's a couple people that want them out. They managed to fix everything and set themselves up with the situation. And then, the gods gift them this Veronica rogue vote that completely makes Veronica the focus of the entire house, brings this entire gatecrasher scenario back into play, because that was what they had talked about initially when they came into the house. Then that kind of went away. Now it's back. And Erica winning HOH was perfect for them because, as we mentioned, like, they were good with her. And this was a very easy week for Derek. He just got to chill. And by Derek chilling, honestly, this is one of his strengths in the game. It's like, because, okay, so here's the thing, right? A lot of people throughout the season, and by a lot, I mean like a numbered few, tried to compare Derek to BB19's Matt because of situations like this, I feel, where like, oh, Derek wasn't doing anything or he's just hanging out. Sure, he was just hanging out for some weeks. But what Derek did in spades, which Matt was incapable of doing, was using his social game to benefit and to gain capital for following weeks. Some of it for game, some of it, let's say, not for game. Let's say just hang out for the sake of hanging out. But these came to help Derek's game a lot. These down weeks where he didn't have much to do, just keeping in touch with everybody, just hanging out, just socializing, and making everyone feel welcome with him and he's approachable, he's sociable. These weeks honestly were key for Derek moving forward. And yes, we get to a point in the game where he starts winning competitions to stay safe, which we'll get to later. But for this middle game, the social game is what kept him going strong. And it was weeks like this which he did not just let go to waste.
Yes, for sure. Derek spends most of his time this week just solidifying things. So, Kayla had brought Allie and Liv back into the fold, and they wanted to include Erica in on that alliance. Now that Erica's HOH, they officially form their own kind of alliance here, and Derek gets involved in that. He's helped solidify his relationship with Allie and Liv, as well as Erica. Erica ends up putting Maddie and Marin up on the block. Dayla, the two of them, they're both very happy about this. They're both very happy about the plan to backdoor Veronica. That will help isolate Will, who is their main target at this point, because they have now recognized that Will was the true force behind going after Jesse. They haven't quite caught on to Johnny yet. Paris Erica then wins the veto. She puts up Veronica as the back door. Again, not much that Derek is doing here, just kind of letting things play out because everything is playing out exactly how he wants it to. Paris, at this point, tries to convince Dayla again that Allie and Liv are coming after them. But this time, they're essentially like, oh, okay, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, I'm not buying this. And Paris no longer has any influence on Dayla, at least for now. And at this point, they're off most people's radars. They're looking pretty solid here. The social work is doing well. Veronica being evicted is huge for them. And there you go. Veronica ends up leaving. They vote to evict Veronica, Derek votes to evict Veronica. And we head into a double eviction here, Puya.
Yep. This was the night of unpredictable situations. What's going to happen? Who's going to go up? There were worries. And then ultimately, of all people to win the HOH, we got Olivia winning the HOH, which is nothing but good for Dayla at this point. So it was a quiet night for Derek and Kayla that night. It was a very quiet night because once Olivia wins, they were safe.
Yes. So Olivia wins that HOH. She thinks about targeting Maddie. Johnny is going to prevent that from happening. He's going to shift that target onto anybody but Maddie, but probably Hamza. He would love to target. Johnny is still the one person that would love to target Dayla. They end up getting pretty lucky that Johnny never wins one of these HOHs. That's one of the things that they got lucky with, at least.
Yeah.
But luckily for them, it was Liv. Instead, she ends up nominating Ryan and Marin. Ryan wins the veto, and Hamza goes up as the back door. Dayla, they are very happy to evict Hamza from the house. Obviously, this is another huge win for them. Back-to-back huge wins here, being able to get rid of Veronica and then Hamza, two of their biggest threats in the game. And that is week 4. There you go. Big week for Dayla.
Big week. And this is the dawn of, I just mentioned the distractions coming up. And then this was the dawn of there's only one spot on the block. Because from here on forward, either Marin or Ryan were easily put up there as the pawn. That meant only one person could sit next to them at any given time. And the worry with a showman, so worry with a duo, is that if one of them wins veto, they pull the other one off. They're both safe. Now they're coming after you. So this thought alone kept them safe for the ongoings, not even counting their prowess in social situations or strategic situations. Just mathematically speaking, it was very difficult to contemplate putting them up when you had a beautiful pawn in the form of Ryan sitting there.
Yes, there are a couple of things keeping them safe at this point with Erica. One is that Erica does not want to, as you said, only take one of them out and then have the other one coming after her when she can't compete in HOH. Another is that their relationship with Ali and Liv and that alliance that they've formed with Erica is going to help them out as well to keep Erica thinking that they are enough on her side, that it's not worth taking the shot. But again, because Erica wins this HOH, Derek is safe, and he is, again, not going to need to do much strategically. She wants Ryan gone. That perfectly fits in line with what Dayla wants. So in particular, I have a lot of notes about Derek and his social game this week. He makes a point to spend particular time with Will, to bond with Will. He bonds with Ali. He bonds with Paris. He bonds with Erica. He I have whole notes written out of scenes of him just like going to these people, bonding with them on a personal level, feeling them out, and it's going to be very effective. With Will, his relationship with Will is going to be very useful throughout the game. The relationship that he maintains with Ali is going to be very beneficial, because Ali is going to end up choosing Dayla over Johnny, and that's going to be very, very huge for them. The bonding with Erica is going to prevent Erica from being one of the things that prevents Erica from ending up targeting Dayla while she has the chance. And again, ultimately, we'll talk about it once we get there. The final two. If he has this jury vote, a lot of this social bonding could come into play. So you got to watch out for it.
Yeah, you cannot discount it. You cannot discount it just because he's done a good job, and also because his counterpart has done more of a poor job when it comes to the bonding and when it comes to the connections. So Derek does what he does best. He fortifies his relationships here. He makes new ones. He bonds. This is him and Kayla did a very good job of bonding with Marin, to the point where Marin starts being looked at. And then he would do, when Ryan would do all his walks in the backyard to lose the weight that he lost, Derek partook in a lot of them with Ryan. Like, these are little things that people discount, but they're bonding moments. They're one-on-one moments that people think this is just you being a friend. This is just you being there with me. It's like, oh, hey, do you want to go on a hike today? It's like, not necessarily, but I'll come and hang out with you. That's how it feels with Derek. That's how he's made it feel with all of them. It feels like he has no reason to do this, but he's doing it because he wants to, not because he needs to. And when you're in a situation where you don't have to worry, you don't have to play game, you don't have to try hard, you don't come off like you're trying to play people. You come off like you're trying to be in their company. And Derek did this flawlessly.
Yeah, and these are moments that would never make the show.
Yeah.
They barely make the live feed updates because they're
Yeah.
so potentially inconsequential.
Mm.
But you know, when it comes down to it, if Derek ends up winning this game, it could come down to these moments, like during week 5 when he is bonding with these people. If he gets Ryan's vote because he, you know, made it a point to, despite the fact that they were at each other's throats, be courteous with Ryan and spend time with him. If he ends up getting Maddie's vote, he spends a lot of time bonding with Maddie. We'll talk more about that in the future. He bonds with her on a personal level. These are the reasons why. And I know a lot of people are going to point to, oh, like it's a bitter jury, and that's definitely true to some extent. But it's also a jury that is influenced potentially by these moments of genuine bonding and interaction that Derek does, and he does it better than anyone else. Save maybe even like the way that Johnny does it is purely strategic. When Johnny is doing his jury management, you know, we're not going to talk about it because you know, Johnny's not in the final 3. But for comparison's sake, when Johnny campaigns to Ryan for his jury vote, it's all about strategy. It's about, look at all these things that I did in the game, and they do have a personal connection, but Ryan is mostly going like, wow, I didn't even know who you were, Johnny. Whereas everyone knows who Derek is, and when Derek bonds with you socially, you feel like, you know, he's just a good guy. Like everybody just feels good about Derek except for Johnny. So that's really one of Derek's biggest strengths in the game. And it's why Kayla has felt like she needed to cut Derek for so long. You know, you can understand why she's intimidated by him, and we'll talk more about that when we get to Kayla's game on Thursday. But that's what Derek is doing here. Erica ends up nominating Ryan and Marin. Obviously, Dayla wants Ryan gone. They are still at each other's throats, them and Ryan. And again, this comes back to Ryan spilling that information about what Derek told him in that week 2 individual conversation. Plus, Paris throwing Ryan under the bus to them when Ryan really wasn't doing anything. That was the start of this Ryan feud. But they want Ryan out. They feel like Ryan is coming after them, and they have won Marin over to some extent. So they feel better about Marin. Johnny ends up winning the veto. He doesn't use it. And at this point, Dayla is going to try to campaign for Ryan to leave, but they are going to be unsuccessful.
Yeah, it ultimately doesn't pan out. I feel like it's funny because like the week prior, we had seen Johnny really not like Marin and wanting to like get rid of Marin. And that should have gone hand in hand with Dayla wanting to, you know, get rid of Ryan, like this feud going on. But ultimately, it's what I said earlier. The fact that it seemed like Marin was hanging out with those two exclusively, the fact that they had done such a good job of just hanging out with Marin, making Marin feel welcome. I mean, we had just seen Marin lose every single person that was close with him to a degree. He had nobody at this point, or he had people, but he didn't have his like close friends. And Dayla were able to swoop in and make him feel that comfortable to the point where other people saw this and did not like it one bit. So they decided to not let that happen and not keep Marin in. Also, the arguments there were that, well, anyone that's sitting next to Marin, he's such a nice guy. Marin's going to be here. We're going home one by one, which ends up being the reason why Marin's going to be getting the boot this week.
Yes. And this is also another important thing that happens here this week. This is when Dayla finally starts to realize, oh, Johnny is our roadblock in this game. Johnny is preventing us from sending Ryan home this week. And so now Will is still their main target, but they're realizing that Johnny is the one that needs to go up next to Will if they want to send Will home. And that's going to be very important. Ultimately, this, I think, probably Johnny's biggest mistake in the game, apart from lying about his vote. The campaigning that he does to evict Marin. And it is a blow to Dela's game. Ultimately, it's the biggest mistake Johnny made, but Johnny is still in a crushing position over Dela at this point. They fail to save Ryan because Johnny at this point is turning everyone against them. They are in some dire straits here. They are starting to really be in trouble because a lot of the reason why people kept Ryan was to go after Dela. They have become, once again, some of the biggest targets in the game. Even people like Erica are and Olivia potentially are starting to turn on them. But things are not looking totally dire because they're going to start showing that they've got some competition chops as well. So Marin is ultimately evicted. Derek and Kayla both vote to evict Ryan, but Marin is the one that goes home, and that is our week 5.
Yep, that concludes this week, and thus begins the story of, yes, we have social game, but we no longer necessarily need it because we've got a couple other things up our sleeves. Because from here until the final 4 HOH, only 2 competitions were not won by this duo. Only 2. So let's crack it open.
Yes, they finally start. They're halfway through the season. It's time to turn it on. Derek ends up taking safety in the HOH competition that Kayla wins. Kayla wins this HOH. And Will is going to be their target at this point. But they want Will to go up and Johnny to go up next to him with Will as the target. But this is the infamous Kayla HOH week, and Derek is going to be sitting there for some of it. He's going to be in the bathroom for some of it. He's going to let Kayla kind of do her thing. But we'll go over this during Kayla's episode. But there's just a lot of back and forth. Ultimately, we see Paris hoodwink Kayla into thinking that Ryan is the cause of all of her problems. But in the meantime, it's revealed that Johnny was actually even more of a thorn in their side than they ever realized. And Johnny becomes a bigger target in their eyes than even Will through the conversations that happen. So Kayla has been convinced to target Ryan by Paris. At this point, Derek actually, and I forgot this, was like, I still would rather prefer to backdoor. I would still prefer to backdoor Johnny. I still want Johnny out of this house over Ryan. But Kayla says, I think Johnny will be indebted to us. I would prefer to get Ryan out of the house. So that's where they stand this week in terms of their plan moving forward. They are trusting Paris and what she said. They're still trusting in their alliance with Ali, Olivia, and Erica. And this is where they start to win out. But this is a potentially huge mistake for them to target Ryan here. We can't lay the fault off of Derek's hands entirely because he didn't push back that hard. He went along with this plan, and it was a bad one.
Yeah, no, it was not a good plan at all. Again, the blame bank coming into play. Paris made a huge deposit and they bought it. It was like Ryan was the one person that Paris could still control Dela over. Every other avenue was locked. If she had mentioned anyone else's name, they were no longer buying what she was selling. But Ryan was still available for pickup. So she did that. They just looked back at Ryan again. And I think, as you mentioned, even though Derek had said Johnny would probably be the best call, it comes back to the whole, Johnny will be okay with us moving forward. This will be all right. And then after all this is said and done, it was a bad move to start. But then with murmurs coming up in the week going through with the whole them finding out where Erica lies and Ali and Olivia maybe having their own big fumble, it allowed them to kind of see the light. And even though it was too little too late, Canada gifted them the opportunity to right a wrong, which they ended up doing.
Yes, ultimately Johnny wins the veto. He's thinking about using it on Will, and at this point, Kayla and Derek feel like it would be a good move to backdoor Erica if this happens, because they're realizing that Erica has turned on them, and it's largely in part due to Johnny's influence. But Johnny does not use the veto. They lose their chance to take a shot at Erica. And again, this is another portion of the week that kind of went underreported. Derek spends more time bonding with Maddie. It's talking with Maddie on a personal level. I'm a broken record at this point, but this is very important. This is very important to Derek's game and his potential win equity here. Maddie is an important piece in the jury house for him, and he spends a lot of time bonding with her this week. He also does this romantic bath for Kayla that we saw on the feeds. And for as cringy as it was to watch, Kayla loved it.
Oh, Kayla ate it up.
And, Kayla was like, I had kind of been feeling like you weren't into this, but this has helped me feel like you are really into me. Like, his social game, part of it is convincing Kayla that he's really into her. And Kayla's feelings for him are a huge part of why she's not willing to potentially cut him when it comes to the final three. I think a lot of it is strategic, but a lot of it is also, she keeps talking to us on the feeds, my head, my heart, I just don't know if I can do it. And part of that is because of these weird things. Like, I mean, I don't, it's just like, it's one of those things you're just like, really, that worked? Really? But it worked. Derek did it and it worked. So the romantic bath, another part of Derek's game.
Yeah, he wined her, he dined her, and it ended there. But it's interesting because I feel like there's a couple ways to look at it. Personally, the way I've seen it, obviously at this point, we can all safely say we don't really see Derek being that into her. However, I feel like by holding back, by not giving Kayla everything, how like that one kiss was so sought after. She got the kiss. She was, in love with it. Then she gets this bath. It's a romantic gesture. She loves it. The fact that they haven't gone, quote unquote, all the way, I feel like it's still like I haven't finished what I've started and I want it. I want it because I can't have it. And I feel like that's been something that's gone forward with Kayla and really like started to make Kayla's feelings be in a place where she feels strongly. Maybe after she has it, she's like, ugh, I'm good. I'm over it. So I feel like holding that has honestly helped him somewhat. But it kind of goes back to it. Like, Kayla was HOH this week. Derek wasn't, and Derek used this time to still further his game by getting closer to people that have been that he might not have been as close to, and that would help him in the future weeks coming forward. So even though Kayla's got power now and Kayla's going to get on radars, Derek knows or understands that there's going to be a ricochet effect. If they can't get Kayla, who's next? Me. So I think he went to work. He solidified his bonds. He solidified his showmance a little more, and it all pans out well for him, given that they were about to face this ridiculously big blindside come eviction night.
Yes. Ultimately, strategically, these next couple of weeks are going to be very bad for Dela. They're going to be making some bad decisions, but they're going to get bailed out by a couple of things. One is their competition ability, and one is Canada has decided to save Ryan in order to screw Kayla over, and in doing so, give Kayla a huge advantage in the game by allowing her to do what she should have done in the first place and nominate Erica. Erica goes up on the block and is evicted from the house. Derek is one of the votes there to evict Erica. Huge save here. They would have been in a heap of trouble if this twist had not happened. So you definitely cannot say they were unaided by twist, either one of them. Twists, I should say. So this was big for them for sure. And that is week 6 for Derek.
Yeah. This honestly, Taran, I feel like if they had not gotten rid of Erica, who's to say what the scope of the game would have been, the landscape of the comp wins would have been? Because Erica at that point had been the most proven to win competitions. And I feel like she wouldn't have been stopping anytime soon. At this point, the train has left the station, might as well keep going. So the fact that they got rid of arguably the biggest competition competitor, add in the mistakes they make along the way and the blunders, the competitions really save their hive moving forward. And Erica going was the blessing they needed from above. And it worked out pretty well that their target was saved. Like maybe, I don't know what would have necessarily happened if Will was the one saved. So it all worked out literally the exact way it should have. And Kayla was able to right her wrong with her HOH by making the right choice at the last second.
Yes. And so heading into week 7, this is a must-win HOH. If Derek does not win this HOH, Dela is almost definitely going up in the block. Almost anybody would target Dela heading into this week. And Derek ends up winning it. He wins this must-win HOH. This is going to be the first of many must-win competitions that both Derek and Kayla will be able to pull out. And he does it in a tiebreaker, which, man, leads me to believe if Erica is there, she has a very real shot at winning this competition. So, very important that Erica leaves, because even if she doesn't somehow win this competition, the fact that Erica is there, another person to be used as a buffer for either Johnny or Erica to come in and win another competition, it was very, very huge for them to get Erica out. But Derek wins this HOH, and Johnny is going to be his target. Johnny is going to pitch to him. He's going to ignore all of Johnny's pitches. He wants Johnny out of the house. He doesn't want to put Will up next to Johnny. That's what Kayla wants. He doesn't want to put Will up. He wants to continue. He says this explicitly. He wants to continue to exploit his relationship with Will, the bro thing that they have going on. So instead, he puts up Johnny and Ryan. Now, ultimately, this may end up being a mistake on Derek's part to not put Will up, but I have to say I don't think so. Even though this week also doesn't turn out particularly well for him or Kayla. Putting Will up on the block, again, he ends up using his relationship with Will later on to further his position in the game. So it really would have dampened that his ability to do that in the future. And also, it may have actually been easier for Johnny to stay over Will than it was for him to stay over Ryan. So who knows? But ultimately, he puts Johnny and Ryan up on the block.
Yeah, and I feel like this is the week where anyone that had called Derek a nobody in the house or had not been able to see the subtlety of his gameplay was awakened, because Derek wins a competition that he studied for. This is the guy who comes in the beginning of the season and says he's here to promote his Instagram and gain followers, and he looks like Zac Efron and he's going to move along. All the bad juju he brought in with the perception he was giving us in preseason shattered at this point. He's picked up the game. He's socially very sound, and he's studying for competitions for a show that he did not really know much about when he started. You think about that HOH comp with what are their names? Ika, Kevin, and Sabrina being there, and we get a diary room from him saying, I have no idea who these people are. This is that same guy now in the same game, dominating a question-based competition, and then following that with a veto win. So this is where I feel like Derek's stock starts to rise a lot more, not to just the live feeders who are watching the subtlety, but to a broader audience that may not have seen how he was playing the game. Because as you mentioned, even when it came to the live feed updates, Taran, a lot of Derek's game wasn't really noteworthy at that point, because it's like, oh, he had a conversation with so-and-so. They hung out. They talked about their families. Like, these are not things that are going to come up in a strategy-based update. And now he's going to get into the forefront a little bit. He's starting to show his chops. He gets this must-win HOH. And while the results weren't exactly what he would have wanted it to be, it still is a notch on his belt moving forward.
Yeah, and for the record, you talked about his stock. Both Brent and I and Melissa, just a week lagging behind, had been saying ever since week 3, when Derek manages to keep himself off the block with Hamza, his stock had been on the rise. Then Erica won. Derek just continues to work his social game. Derek's stock in the stock watch had been up, and up until this week when Johnny pulls a fast one on them, where this is really going to be a big blow to both him and Kayla's game. But all hope is not lost because of their competition wins. So Johnny and Ryan are up on the on the block. Derek ends up winning the veto. He does not use it, and this is he actually proposes a final four to Paris and Will. Derek does this alone. Well, weird final four to propose, because that ends up being the final four, and just continuing to work the social game. But this is when Johnny does his magic. While Dela has their backs turned, Johnny runs around. He tricks everyone into thinking that it's in their best interest to keep him in the house, and that they're working. And we've talked about this extensively. It ultimately comes back to Dela that people are thinking about keeping Johnny. They kind of see that there's not much they can do to change the tides here. So they did the same thing, the same tactic they used when Jesse was going to go home. They tried to ride that wave. They tried to go, oh, no, we're part of this wave too. And this is probably Derek's lowest moment of the game, not in terms of like bad decision making, but just in terms of like looking like an idiot. Johnny very easily tricks Derek into thinking that Derek is tricking Johnny into thinking that Derek is rounding up votes for him, when ultimately this has all been done prior. It's all play acting, and Derek is going to look like a big fool here.
Yeah, Derek and Kayla both kind of hung out until they started hearing whispers, and then decided it's time to jump on the bandwagon. It's like, it's one of those things, like, if a deal is going down in this house, I want in. I don't care if it's bad for me, I want to be a part of it. And that's pretty much what they did. They tried to get on top of it. They convinced themselves very well, with the help of Johnny, that they're the reason this is happening. We are so amazing. This is a great game move. This is perfect. We kind of didn't like Ryan anyways. To hell with Ryan. This will be interesting moving forward. And it was a detriment to them. It was bad for them. But then we start moving into the following week, where Derek goes from having to be in a must-win situation for this HOH to having to be in a must-win situation again to stay alive.
Yes. So this is again, very, very bad week here. Despite being in power, they do take out Ryan, who was their longtime enemy, but Johnny stays in the house on the promise that he is going to go after Dela. They continue to be the targets. This is a must-win HOH for Kayla, but it doesn't happen. Johnny wins the HOH in week 8, and his target is going to be Derek. And this is the most danger Derek has been in all season long. Johnny thinks, look, I want to target Kayla and Derek. He thinks Kayla is the more dangerous player. He'd love to get Kayla out. However, Derek is better at competitions. Therefore, he needs to get Derek out of the house. So that's going to be Johnny's plan. He instigates this big house meeting. Everybody's gameplay is exposed. The entire strategic landscape of the house is leveled. And from this point on, everything is changed. Everything is up in the air. It's all just down to Dela, the trio, Ali, Liv, and Johnny. Johnny is on his own. And then you've got the pairs and the trio. So that's Johnny's going to change the strategic landscape of the house. Derek is going to be very sad to learn that he had nothing to do with Johnny staying. But that's weirdly something to actually note, because when Derek finds out that he had nothing to do with it, he actually knows that he had nothing to do with it, and he admits that he had nothing to do with it, as opposed to somebody that he might be up against in the final two in Paris, who may continue to pretend that she had things to do with things that she had nothing to do with. So, it's a little bit of self-awareness. Usually you don't have to highlight it, but we kind of do in Derek's case.
Yeah, it's worth noting, because it's hard to admit that you looked a fool, right? It's very hard to admit that you messed up. So for him to tuck it between his legs and be like, yeah, no, I guess you're right, like, I didn't really have a part in it, is huge. It shows that you're willing to accept your flaws. It shows that you're willing to accept when you were in the wrong. And especially if he's to be at the end with someone like Paris, who I adore, but Paris being the hero of her own narrative as much as she is, because you can convey that confidence, and it certainly plays out similarly to how Rob mentioned last night on the recap with season 1 of Australian Survivor. However, when you're doing it too much to the point where people are like, oh, that was subtle, I didn't notice it, to I just know you're making stuff up at this point. That's where Derek's honesty kind of comes into play. That's where Derek's honesty will shine through. And it's a good look for him. To look stupid, yes, it's kind of bad if you want to argue then if he's sitting next to Kayla, perhaps. But him knowing himself, knowing his self-worth, and understanding where he is in the house and where he belongs is good. Another thing to note from this week is that this is where Derek starts using a lot of the social capital that he has had to start selling and trying to do as much as he can to keep the target off of him, and he shifts all of it on Paris.
Mhm.
He literally tanks every bit of stock he had of Paris in the toilet just to try and convince Johnny that Paris is the one you want to go after. Another thing worth noting is that up until this week, the beloved shortlist that we got to see every episode, this is the first time he shows up on that shortlist. He was not on this shortlist for 8 weeks, and then he shows up this week.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, as you mentioned, Derek is going to spend a lot of time, and he pulls out some decent moves here. He has a lot of information to reveal. He reveals the real deal to Johnny, says they should work together. He's going to start working a social game with Will and try to throw Paris under the bus, which works. He turns Will against Paris briefly. But unfortunately, as with basically every single point in this game up until this week, when it comes to Dela versus Johnny, Johnny is going to win. And everything that he does to try to campaign to stay does not work. Derek is going to go home unless he wins this veto. But he wins. He wins the veto. After Johnny nominates Kayla and Derek, and Johnny solidifies the votes against Derek, Derek is in a must-win position, and he does it. He pulls out another must-win veto, and he takes himself off the block, meaning that Ali is going to go up as his replacement. And new life has been breathed into Derek's lifeless body.
Yeah. It gave him new life. Winning this competition was everything for him. And again, 2 times in 2 weeks where he's in a must-win situation and he pulls that out. That's very clutch. It's not easy to do. And as we see, in the following week, not everybody is capable of winning the one competition they need to win to stay alive.
Yeah. So again, he's going to continue to try and reintegrate himself and try to work some magic to keep Kayla safe now that he is off the block. For the most part, this vote is not going to come down to much of what Derek or Kayla are doing. Immediately when Ali goes up on the block, or immediately when Derek wins the veto, people who were Johnny had just convinced them to make this crazy move. And so they're already in the mindset of like, crazy moves. What if we keep Kayla? What if we evict whoever goes up in Kayla's place? Both Ali and Liv and the trio are thinking that as soon as Derek wins the veto. Once Ali eventually goes up on the block, the trio is going to be considering this without having even talked to Derek and Kayla yet. In fact, some of Derek's campaigning, he's campaigning hard. He's campaigning decently well. But again, Johnny's going to turn that around on him. And that's going to be used as a weapon against Kayla. Johnny is going to inform Paris that Derek has been throwing you under the bus. You revealed the real deal, all of this stuff. And Paris at this point is like, you dummy, you just sealed your girlfriend's fate. She does not like this. But eventually, Paris and Will and Maddie, they're gonna, again, we talked about this a lot. They're going back and forth. Paris is gonna do a lot of talking with Derek and Kayla. All 3 of them are going to talk to them individually. Derek is going to swear on his family. I will keep you guys safe in the triple eviction. Kayla swears on her cats. But honestly, if I have to say, who really did a lot of the work to make people feel good, I think it was Derek swearing on his family. They referenced Derek swearing on his family a lot after the fact. Kayla also does a good job despite only swearing on her cats. And that is not going to be the turning point. but it's going to open the door. It's going to leave the door unlocked for the trio to potentially keep Kayla in the house. And then ultimately, as again, we've talked about it a lot, Allie ends up sticking her foot in her mouth multiple times. And when it comes down to it, it could have gone either way. Some people have said, hey, if Will had voted before Paris during that eviction, then Kayla might have been evicted because Will was more likely to evict Kayla. And Will asked Paris who she voted for. So it really could have all come down to that. But ultimately, very lucky and fortunate for Derek and, of course, Kayla. Kayla ends up staying. The trio lands on evicting Allie, and there you go. The rest is history.
Yeah. So when it comes to the Kayla versus Allie done messed up with all the mistakes she made socially, and then on the flip side, you mentioning how Derek had the stronger play on his swearing than Kayla. Yes, but also to consider the fact that Kayla's on the block. You're expected to swear on everything you're gonna do. Derek really did play it strong enough, making them understand that if he's safe, he will prove it to them. He will keep them away from losing in the triple. And lo and behold, Derek gets a chance to prove that, because here comes the triple. We've been waiting for this they've been waiting for this for 8 weeks. We've been dreading it for 8 weeks. Here it is. And Derek wins, and he's able to prove to them that, hey, I was honest. And another thing we'll get to after to continue on this honesty thread is BB Can put out videos showing the house guests, the final four, videos of them preseason sending a message to themselves. So we'll talk about that at the end of it there. Also, I'm being told that the BB Can Derek account is not happy with me. Watch this video and understand that I'm being unbiased. Okay, bro? I'm not being personal. I personally don't like him. I never said I know him. Thank God I don't know him. You have to deal with that anyways moving forward.
I looked. I'm not seeing any shade. I think we're being misinformed.
Oh. Well, let's see. So it says claiming to know him as a person and a player. Come on now, bro.
Oh, there it was. Yeah, I didn't see that.
I never said okay, whatever. Yeah.
It was
all good.
It was a joke. I think they're joking with us as well.
All right. Cool. We'll have a couple beers after this season. We'll have burgers. We'll bro down. It'll be
bro out. Yeah. I think it was pretty clearly a joke when I said I knew Derek better than he knew himself. So yes, Allie is evicted. We head into the triple eviction. Derek wins his third must-win competition in a row here. He wins that HOH, and he nominates Johnny, Olivia, and Maddie, keeping his word to the trio. Kayla ends up winning the veto. She does not use it, and Johnny and Olivia go home. At this point, the game is all in Dela's hands. That was the most important win of the season, and Derek managed to pull it out. That is week 8. Yet another week where, no, sorry, I just skipped a week.
Oh, rewind.
Didn't I? Or no, I didn't. No, never mind. That was Johnny's HOH, the triple eviction, week 8. That is the most important week for Derek and Kayla here. That is when their stock just skyrockets.
Yeah. They've pretty much eliminated all the threats they have as far as competitions go. They kept their promise to the trio. They kept the trio in. They're at the final 5. Now, if you look at it, you're thinking numerically, this looks pretty bad. But then you look at the makeup of the trio that they're going to be facing moving forward, and it's pretty good. It's a pretty good shot. Amongst themselves, they've won every single competition from week 6 till now, with the exception of 2 that were won by Johnny, who they just got rid of, and the trio have 0 wins amongst themselves. And we all know that at this point of the game, by the end game, it does come down to who's getting the competitions and who are they targeting, and it's as simple as that. So what do they need to do at this point? Simple. They have to win the next competition. And they do.
They do. I mean, really, just like the story of Dela's game and Derek's game is that they were in power. They were the center of power, and then they sort of misplayed their hand about halfway through the season. They start winning competitions. Once they actually have choices to make, they make the wrong choices, but they get bailed out by a twist. They end up winning some competitions, and the competitions that they win are important. They win enough competitions to survive the wave of nastiness coming their way because of those mistakes. And because they've won enough competitions, they essentially they ride it out, and they come out on the other side. It's like when you go into it's like when you're playing a video game and you're supposed to do it all stealthy, and then like you mess up and you shoot something, and then everyone's coming after you, and then you just end up shooting them all, and you get lucky and you happen to kill everyone, and you're the only person left, and you're like, oh wow, well now I don't even have to be stealthy. I can just walk to the finish. I'm done. Like I made a mistake, but it turned out all right for me. That's sort of the story of Dela's game together in the house.
Yeah, it all kind of works out at the end. They had adversity to start. They had a couple weeks where they laid low and they were okay. And then they got into this mode where it was win or go home. It's game. You're about to get swept. It's like game 7. Any playoff analogy you want to use works here because they're in a win or go home situation. And the ones they needed to win, they won. The moves they needed to make, they didn't necessarily make, but it kind of worked out because they got a second chance to make a lot of those mistakes right. And then they're standing here at the end, final 5. They went. Kayla wins both those competitions. Derek is henceforth safe, and because the worry there was that if Kayla doesn't win, there is a situation here that Derek goes home, and that didn't happen. It all worked out. Maddie's evicted unanimously.
Yes, and another thing to mention about Derek's jury management, the one person that he misses here, and we've talked about it before, is Johnny. And if Derek ends up losing a jury vote, we can probably put that on Johnny's shoulders. Obviously Kayla did a better job of bonding with Allie and Liv than Derek did, but Derek has done a better job of bonding with basically every other person. And Derek's goodbye messages along the way have far outshined Kayla's in terms of how genuine they feel and how much they're referencing the personal relationship that they have. But the one person he was never able to connect with was Johnny, and that may prove to be his downfall. Johnny just they fought a lot, they conflicted a lot. Basically ever since that moment when Jesse said Johnny's name and Derek did not stand up for Johnny, Johnny has been anti-Derek, and that gap has only widened. Talking about how Derek might lose this game, even if he's sitting in the final 2, I think that comes down to Johnny, despite the fact that he's able to send Johnny home in the triple eviction. Johnny may continue to be that thorn in his side.
Yeah, no, I think Johnny is going to be the thorn in his side. I think Johnny is going to advocate for Kayla in the instance that Kayla's at the end with him. In the instance that Paris is there with him, I feel like he might swallow his pride and just, do the right thing. I'm not sure. This is always where it gets interesting, the speculation of what the jury is going to do. But I got to give it to Derek. It's looking friggin' close. I feel like with all 3 of them, it's looking friggin' close, but this is going to be a very interesting finale. Like, this is the type of finale where you want to stay off Twitter for.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to be around till like 8 p.m. So that's the way to do it this Thursday.
Yeah. So last week, week 9, Kayla wins the must-win HOH. Another must-win by Dela. They want to target Maddie. Derek wants to keep Maddie, Derek wants Maddie up on the block to keep Will off the block. Derek feels like he can manipulate Will better. Kayla wanted Maddie off the block instead of Will. At this point, they didn't realize that Derek could go home if the person off the block would win the veto. Once they find that out, by Maddie telling them, Derek makes a deal with Will he says, okay, Will, we're keeping you off the block, but if you win that veto, you cannot send me home. He makes Will swear on his family, on his son. Will planned on honoring the deal. This is very important because this is the moment where everything, again, could have gone wrong for Derek. Derek should have gone home at the final 5, but it's his social game yet again, convincing Will, this person he has maintained a relationship with all season long, despite the fact that Will has betrayed him multiple times and gone against it, and their relationship has been rocky. He has never given up that vice grip he's held on Will and the bro thing. He makes this deal. Will plans on honoring the deal, and during the veto competition, Derek is able to talk Will down off of the veto that Will should have won and potentially could have won him the game. Derek, this is probably Derek's best move, managing to take Will out of that veto, keeping himself safe. Kayla wins ultimately that veto, and this is going to secure his spot in the final 4. And he also makes sure to tell Kayla, this is probably another one of his better moves here. He really, I think, steps up his game, his social game, his strategic game toward the end of the season here. He tells Kayla, and he genuinely means this, but this is also just very good for him. He would never cut her in the end. He convinces Kayla of this fact, and he also makes sure to tell her that he would never vote for her in the end if she cut him. And that may be the deciding factor that takes him to the final 2 and potentially wins the game. So a lot of different moves being made here to secure his spot in the finals and secure potentially the jury vote by Derek here.
Yeah, this is honestly, if Derek was to win and he wants to look back at what was the move that got me the win, there's a couple clutch moments we've just covered, but this is the cherry on top of all of that. The fact that he was able to convince Will, should he drop, he's fine, which already he was fine. Winning the veto means he's fine. He jumps down. He steps down. It doesn't take all that much for Derek to do. It's not like Derek had to yell and explain and bare his soul at that moment. It was very, very, very easily done. And I have to say, this is the result of every single bro down he has had with Will. Every moment where he was like, I'm just going to have a beer with Will. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to solidify this thing. He's been doing that from the beginning of the season. And I feel like the absence of Jesse is something that did kind of help with this. I feel like should Jesse have stayed in, it would have, like, Will would have felt like more of an afterthought like he was initially. But the absence of Jesse makes him want to have a bro in the house. He's in a situation where there's no bros left. And no bro shall be left behind. This is a lot of bro. There's Barney Stinson here. But he makes it work. He has the bonds with him. He convinces him to do this, and it works. And then to cover what you said with Kayla, that was key. You give anyone your blessing that you're willing to be friends afterwards, that you're willing to do, like, let bygones be bygones, game recognize game, they'll take the shot. Kayla was hoping that she would get that, permission to do so. By Derek making it clear that, no, I won't do that. I will be bitter. And by the fact that it's a jury of 7 and 1 out of 7 is a lot more important than 1 out of 9, this makes it so that Derek's word is that important. Derek's vote is very important. And while it should be a vote that she should have in the bag, no questions asked, she's not going to have it. No questions asked. And this is also something which I feel like would have, while I believe firmly that Kayla was maybe, let's say, 20% considering getting rid of Will at the final 4, this is still something that rings through her head to this day. Watching those videos of them having their pre-show messages, like pre-show videos to each other, she talks about how, if I can muster up the courage to vote out Derek at the end. And I still think she's going to stand there finale night, look him dead in the face, and she's not going to be able to do it. And it all stems because Derek has, A, terrified her at the idea of not voting for her. So game talk. B, made it seem like they will not have a chance to last after the show, which a lot of us, I think, don't think it's going to last to start. But Kayla still believes in them. So these are two things that Kayla doesn't want to lose. And if she takes Derek out, right now, at the very least, she believes that she will lose. So planning that with Kayla, interspersed with the broship he's had with Will. These are just little subtle things that he's been able to do that have catapulted his game that no comp wins could ever do for him.
Yeah, and you might look at these things and say like, oh, they're so simple. Like anybody could do these things. Anybody could think of these things. Like you have to remember that like it's part of who Derek is that he's able to pull it off. Like this is something like convincing Kayla to take him to the final two if it happens in the way that he's done it is something that Netta was not capable of doing. John was not capable of doing. These are two of the best Big Brother Canada players we've ever seen. But Derek is capable of doing it. He's capable of winning Kayla over, somebody who is absolutely all season long saying, I'm going to cut Derek, now is thinking, I don't think I can. That is huge. And in terms of getting Will to drop, that is, as you mentioned, is the result of Derek nurturing that relationship, as Tracy says in the chat, nurturing his relationship with Will, and never putting him on the block when he had the chance to, making sure he always kept Will safe. I don't think there's a single other person in that house that could have gotten Will to drop in that situation, because Will wouldn't have trusted them. But Will trusted Derek to stick to his word that he would keep him safe. And Derek chose Will to be in that position. Derek couldn't have talked Paris or Maddie off the block, off of the veto competition, but that's why they were on the block and they couldn't send Derek home if they won. He knew that Will was the most vulnerable person there. He made sure Will was in that spot, and then he talked Will off the veto. Very, very impressive stuff by Derek here toward the end of the game. They end up choosing. They stick to their decision, despite what the previously on recap will tell you. Paris had nothing to do with getting Maddie evicted this week. This was all Dela's decision. They end up evicting Maddie from the game, and that is week 9. We've just got one tiny little bit of week 10 to talk about, and we'll be done.
Yeah, we're almost there, guys. And another thing, Taran, so you've mentioned this argument, which I think is very strong, that the fact that Kayla has sold this bill of goods to everyone, that she will cut him at the end, has made that perception a reality to the point where, like, we will be disappointed if we don't see it. The jurors will be disappointed if they don't see it. And then on the flip side, going back again to these little, like, 2-minute clips that they were given of, or we were given, where they were shown video messages that they essentially said to themselves, like, oh, dear Derek, blah, 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 blah. Derek, after seeing that video, talks about how he wants to bring, like, he knows, he understands, but he wants to bring Kayla to the end so he can be like, listen, you can play this game with loyalty and honesty. And she's been my person from the beginning. I think you bring that in, and then on the flip side, have Kayla be the person who said she's going to cut him the whole time. You can't help but feel bad for Derek at that point. You're like, look at Kayla. She was cerebral. She wanted his head on a spike, or she made it seem like that to us. She lied to our faces. She was snarky. She made faces. Derek's this little Pomeranian who just, wants to be honest and wants to, make these connections with us and wants to be friends with us. He didn't do any of this out of hate. He didn't do any of this for game. He didn't know the season. He didn't know the players. He doesn't understand this. He just wants to be honest. And I feel like that narrative could come to bite Kayla at the end. And it can only stand to help Derek. And we're in a situation now where it's not that this is all he has. I feel like with this, we've seen this before, like, oh, it's like someone's like been really nice or like just, acted in kindness and it's come to help them. He's got that, but he's also got the comp resume, which I know maybe this season is not the season for it to be considered heavily or looked at heavily, but he still has them. He's won competitions that are, heavily like a physical somewhat. He's won competitions that are question based. He has evolved as a player from week 1 to now. And I feel like they'd be foolish not to see it. I feel like you guys mentioned last night that you think Derek would be the best to articulate his game. I agree. I feel like he's someone who's socially been able to, curry favor with people all this time. What's a couple more minutes in a high pressure situation? I think he's fine. Whereas I feel like Kayla, you guys mentioned, could be super defensive, will be super defensive, will be offended by the things they're saying, will be annoyed that they're not giving her the W. Similarly to how Paul felt probably when Paul felt attacked by the jury last year. And then as far as Paris goes, the whole narrative she's created for herself, if she doesn't come to realization that a lot of that is just in her head and it's not true, then the jury will be turned off by that as well. Because is the jury going to want to feel played by the person who won one competition and was just the loud one the entire season to their perception? Or do they want to feel like they were outplayed by someone who was nice to them, who cared about them, who made these conversations, who asked about their families, who bonded with them? Derek is looking like he's in the front seat, whereas I feel like all of us feel like Kayla's resume is probably better. The problem is when it comes to the jury perception, Derek's got that rapport that we just can't discount at this point.
Yeah, it's a weird situation here with Derek and Kayla. I don't think we've seen a showmance be this even in terms of maybe John and Netta, but they weren't technically a showmance. But it's something I did notice in terms of the effectiveness of Derek and Kayla in the game is like going over this whole season. You see Derek and Kayla, they're basically on top of the world in the first couple of weeks. They have all of the power. The second they lose Johnny, the second that Johnny is against them, everything they do fails. Every move they try to make, everything they try to accomplish, they manage to keep some relationships that keep them safe. They manage to win some competitions that keep them safe. But in terms of getting their agenda pushed, basically everything except for maybe Veronica, but they didn't have a whole lot to do with that, ends up failing. The second that they finally get Johnny out of the house, it's like, oh my God, they've blossomed into beautiful butterflies. Like now all of a sudden Derek is talking Will down off of a competition. He's convincing Kayla to take him to final two. Derek, truly, Johnny is again the thorn in Derek's side. Again, if he loses, I think it's because of Johnny. Just interesting to note the Johnny and Derek in particular, that the contentious relationship there. So heading into week 10, Paris ends up winning her first and only must-win HOH.
Yep.
Paris is leaving if she does not win this. This is something that is fortuitous to Derek. It helps make his case. He did want to take Paris to the final three. Kayla wanted to take Will to the final three. Who knows who they ultimately would have taken if given the choice. But Paris makes the choice for them. That is good for Derek because it makes Kayla less likely to cut him in favor of taking Will, who she knows she can beat, because she doesn't think she can beat Paris. So this is good for Derek. He makes it clear again to Kayla he will not vote for her if she cuts him in the end. Kayla ends up winning the veto. She briefly considers cutting Derek. He again says, I would never do that to you. I would never talk to you if you did this to me. Kayla she genuinely feels for Derek. She's not willing to do this. She also is, I imagine, scared of the game ramifications. So Kayla, as we know, or at least basically know, decides not to cut Derek here. She cuts Will, and Derek has made it to the final three.
Yeah, Derek, against all odds, by like week 6, is standing there with his partner in crime, Kayla, and they both stand a chance to win. The one thank you I want to give to Paris is thank you for winning that HOH, because had she gone and we were left with Will, I feel like it would have kind of been a little ho-hum, because I feel like at that point, whoever cuts Will or whoever cuts their showmans wins. And in the event that they didn't cut each other, then it would have been interesting. But now we're in a situation where every scenario could bear some crazy results, which is a lot of fun for us to sit here and talk about now. I do want to say that while we've been singing the praises of Derek, there are a couple of things that he, obviously got lucky with. Let's not forget. We mentioned the competitions that he won when he won them. The fact that Veronica making that rogue vote ends up being a complete distraction for the house to focus on her for a while. All the stuff that ensued there. The fact that they didn't get targeted in the double, the right call was made there. And then you look back at this last thing we talked about with Will, where had it been anybody else, Taran, the way he talked in that competition would have rubbed them the wrong way, I feel like. If I have a shot to win and the guy next to me is like, drop now and we're good. Like, the hell you mean? I'll win this and I'm good. And you're good because you should be good with me, especially with the deal they had. But the fact that it was Will helped him heaps. yes, the foundation of the fact that it helped him was his own strong social gameplay with Will. But had he talked like that to anybody else, I feel like that would have been dangerous territory. But outside of these things, again, Derek is someone who evolved from wannabe insta famous to actually has a shot to win this game, go down in history as one of the better winners of this franchise, and become the second Derek to win the title.
Yeah. Something I forgot to mention in week 9, before Maddie leaves, Derek is going to do some very good jury management with her. As I mentioned, he had been bonding with her throughout the season up until this point. He makes a point of pitching his game to her, saying that he is using Kayla as a shield and that he's essentially known what he's been doing all season long. It's a very concise narrative that makes sense. It's something that she's going to bring to the jury house. This is another huge win for him in terms of jury votes, and another potential reason why he may win the game, winning over, because Kayla is going to make the same kind of pitch to Maddie, and it's not going to be nearly as successful in terms of convincing Maddie that Kayla is the better player and that Kayla should win the game. And not to mention just making Maddie feel good about Kayla. She feels so much better about Derek. So in terms of jury management there, it's looking good for Derek. And then so looking forward to this final 3 HOH. We've talked about scenarios before, but thinking about how can Derek win this game, how can Derek lose this game? Obviously, if Paris wins the final 3 HOH, I think she is more likely to cut Derek than take him. So that is a way that he could lose. If he wins the final HOH and takes Kayla, I do think that he may lose Maddie's jury vote, potentially. I think that he may be able to win it back if he's questioned by her, like, oh no, she was my shield, I knew I could beat her, so on and so forth. I think he could potentially win, but I do think he's less likely to win if he takes Kayla. If Kayla wins the final HOH and takes Derek, I think that's his best chance to win. I think we are likely seeing a Derek win with that scenario. Those are sort of the scenario. Obviously, I think either Derek or Kayla has to win. I think he has a chance to win both situations, but Kayla winning is in fact better for him than him winning.
Yeah, because I feel like, and it honestly comes down to, it's Kayla's own fault for making promises she is not going to keep. You don't tell someone you're going to do things multiple times and then not do it. It's like if we went into off season and you're telling us, I'm going to be back with the live feed updates next season, guys. Don't worry. We're going to be on every day, no matter what, even if the feeds are off. And then you don't. You do like half of them. We'll be pissed because we're like, hey, why'd you say you're going to do it if you're not going to do it? So I feel like that is the most insulting part for them, is the fact that Kayla said she's going to do it. She's going to do it. And like everyone is sitting there thinking, this cold-hearted female, she's going to get up there. She's going to make history for the first time ever. The female showman's partner is going to slice the neck of the male, make it to the end, and win the money. And if she doesn't do it, like, why? Why'd you do this? Did you really still just keep falling for him? And the other thing is, there's a couple people in that jury house that genuinely don't think that Derek likes her in that way, that don't think it's a real showman. So they'll be like, you got fooled, you got played, so we're not going to reward you for your blinded love for him. So that's another factor that goes in. I do think the strongest way for Derek's win that I see in these scenarios is the way that you're just discussing now, where Kayla wins HOH and takes him and doesn't make that cut. If he wins and he takes Kayla, it'll be very interesting, because we know his narrative. We know his whole, like, oh, I was honest and I've been like this, and I liked her. She was my like ride or die. That's a good narrative to go with, and then it'll get interesting with the questioning and how that goes. Then something like, who's going to be the person talking to the jury before they do the questions? Someone like Ryan, which we know despises Kayla, could they be put back to neutral with a former player, making them understand that it's a game? There's a lot of factors that go in there. I think that would be very interesting to see. And then, of course, Paris winning, we know that she's most likely going to take Kayla. So that's it's a no bueno for Derek on that one, unless he's able to convince her otherwise.
Yes. So there you go. Derek's game in 2 hours. Derek's entire Big Brother Canada 6 game. I hope that we've sort of elaborated on if Derek does win. Here's why. If it comes down to the social game that he's the jury management, the social game that he's been doing, it would come down to Kayla's lack of jury management and social game compared to his. It would also come down to some of the competitions that he's won, some of the moves that he's made socially. He's a very social and competitive player. He was never a overly strategic player, but sometimes you don't need that. If he loses, I think it ultimately comes down to the fact that he was out strategically played by Kayla. And ultimately, if he loses, I think the main factor here will be Johnny. His inability. The one person that he couldn't win over socially was Johnny. Johnny happens to be the best, potentially the best player in the house, and that is no good for him when it comes to the jury. So if he loses, then I think we can ultimately place the blame there on Kayla being better and Derek's inability to win over Johnny, and that's how we see Derek in the house. I hope you found this podcast informative, and I hopefully you have a better idea of where Derek stands. Why I would be happy to see a Derek win. I think he definitely is one of the better players in the house. Maybe top 3, and I think he's a deserving winner.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. I know that I've been painted with the I don't like Derek brush, which I'm still saying not a fan of him. Don't really like him. However, if he wins, I am not sad. I will be like, congratulations, good win. Obviously, I have my preferences on who I'd rather see win, but I feel like this season more than others, I'm in a situation where I'm happy with the outcome regardless. I'm very okay with whoever wins. That's why this finale is going to be so much fun for me, because it's not a situation where we need Brent to come out with the veil. It's the Pax Bros are not going to win. Thank the Lord. So we're in a situation where I'm going to be happy regardless. And ultimately, no matter how I feel about him, on a house guest level, I admire him from a gameplay level, 100%. And I'm never going to discount that. Well done to him. Again, coming in as someone who was here, didn't really know what they were doing. He loved the game enough that he applied 3 times despite not having watched any of it before, really. And despite saying he wants to promote his Instagram, despite saying he looked like Zac Efron and walks around shirtless all the time, he still played a hell of a game, and that cannot be discounted at all.
Yeah. Very excited to talk about Paris tomorrow. She's played a very different game. So that'll be fun to go over and talk about how she might win and why, and how she might lose and why, and everything in between. So look forward to that with Brent tomorrow. And then, of course, Thursday, we'll be talking with Matt about Kayla's game and her potential ability to win as well. Very excited to cover all of it. Again, I hope that I hope these podcasts. I feel like the ones we did for Big Brother 19, really, Paul's was the only one that had much to say. Luckily, this one, I think all 3, we have got plenty to say about every single one of them. But I feel like they've stood the test of time. They stand out as valuable resources for anyone looking to remember exactly what went down on Big Brother 19. You just go back to those podcasts. I hope the same can be said for Big Brother Canada 6 with these ones. Very excited about all of it. Thank you to the chat who has joined us for 2 long hours of Derek recapping. Thank you to Puya for sitting through. You were the person. You weren't the biggest Derek fan, but you came here. You were unbiased, and you were willing to talk about his game. Thank you to Puya also for just being around all season long, joining me on these updates. You are truly a wonder.
I can't thank you enough, man. It was a great opportunity this season, as well as BB19. I love Big Brother, and I get to talk about it weekly. That's a win for me, ultimately, no matter what. I would have talked about Rosina's game for 2 hours if we had done that. So I'm happy, and I'm a professional. at the end of the day, I'm a professional. I'm going to do what needs to be done when others don't want to talk about beans. I am here. So.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you to Derek's family if you've sat through this whole podcast to get the full context of the jokes that we were making. I hope that you found this to be fair. I think we were pretty complimentary of Derek, and obviously, no, we don't know him on a personal level. He seems like a pretty good guy to me, but I don't know him, so I can't say that for sure. Thank you everyone for joining us, and I will make sure you follow us on Twitter. I'm at Armstrong Taran. Puya is at Puyaism, and check out all the coverage we've got heading towards you tomorrow, Thursday. We've got the roundtable tonight where we're going to finish off the stock watch. We'll do some more season-wide recaps, talk about the season as a whole, less about the players since we're doing that with these updates. And then Thursday night we will be recapping the finale, and then we will also hopefully have interviews with the final three in the following days after that. So very excited about all of it. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. I will see you next time.